This is a 2024 Buick Envista Sport Touring. A brand new Buick for 2024 that introduces a brand new styling language to the storied brand. That styling language is based on the Wildcat EV concept car that Buick introduced in June of 2022. By the way, Buick calls this new vehicle an SUV, but the government classifies it as a small station wagon. There are 3 trims: the base Preferred, this Sport Touring, and the top-of-the-line Avenir. This is now one of just 4 vehicles offered in the entire Buick brand. And I think it's pretty clear, it's a big departure from tradition as well. The question I have is, does this departure from tradition show a bright future for the brand? Let's find out. I review all kinds of cars, and I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. The base price of a 2024 Buick Envista Preferred is $23,495. Moving into the middle-of-the-road Sport Touring trim raises that price to $25,195. And my test car included several different packages and a metallic paint to cost $29,070. All right, with that, now is a good time for me to pull over and show you around and inside and under the hood of this brand new Buick and show you some of these packages I was talking about. Looking at the car from the front, it is definitely a departure from the classic Buick shape, much more modern and sleek and swoopy as well. You also have the Buick logo now adorning the top of the front grille right here, just ahead of the hood. There's a lot going on just on the hood, but I'd still rather show you what's underneath it. Well, there it is, your turbocharged 1.2 liter 3-cylinder engine. It's a buzzy little thing, but 137 horsepower, 162 pound-feet of torque. It's pretty reasonable considering the size of this car. The front axle center line is just past the back of this fuse box here, coming across this way, so most of the engine is in fact ahead of the front axle. Not fantastic for weight distribution, and this is a front-wheel drive car, so the transaxle is also up here as well. But it is an overall light vehicle generally, so even considering so much weight up front, it's not all that bad. And yes, windshield washer fluid is easy to get to on the passenger side right here. Looking at the car in profile, this gives you a better chance to see the Moonstone Gray metallic paint. This is a $495 optional color. However, there's only one standard color for the Envista, and that is called Summit White. So anything other than white, you're paying something. I will go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen right now for you to check out and let you know I have a lot more information in the description. Standard wheel for a Buick Envista Preferred is a 17-inch, but because I have the Experience Buick package, which is $995, I get, among other things, 19-inch wheels and this nice sharp gloss black paint to go with them. I also get something that's called a Watts Link. A Watts Link adds a lot of lateral strength to the rear suspension, so that's an interesting addition for the Experience Buick package as well. And yes, this is a square setup. The wheel and tire in back is the same as what's in front. Looking at the car from the back, it does look a touch on the bulbous side to me here. This is the weakest part of the design, but still not bad. Don't get me wrong, it's just not as strong as the other bits. One thing the Buick does that I definitely appreciate, no fake faux exhaust tips here. We just have one tip beneath on the driver's side, hanging out just as it should be. Because we have the Convenience Package 2 as part of the Envista, a $595 option, we have a power liftgate that you saw there, which is lovely. And it reveals 21 cubic feet of cargo space behind the second row. And if you need more than 21 cubic feet of storage, that is easy to do. Pull a couple levers, and release the privacy panel if you'd like, and you get 42 cubic feet of storage and enough space for you and a passenger. And I think enough space for my bike, but this looks kind of close, but let's find out. Oh boy, it's smaller, but it's wide enough without much trouble. And the seats fold pretty, oh yeah, that's actually pretty easy. Pleasantly surprised. That's actually plenty of room for my bike. No problem at all. All right, let's check out the inside. Because I have the convenience package, which is $1,195, I have, among other things, remote start. The interior color for the Sport Touring Envista is black with Santorini blue accents. These guys that you see right here going throughout. But overall, it must be said this is an awfully dark interior. I would prefer something lighter myself. That said, I am 5 feet 11 inches or 181 centimeters tall, and I have a good 6 inches of knee room. I have pretty high seat bottom, so decent thigh support, and headroom too, despite having a moonroof, which is up there. And I also have less than a 90-degree bend in my knees. So yeah, the second row of the Envista is a lot more comfortable than I expected. I do not have a center armrest with cup holders, so it is a little Spartan back here, but it is comfortably Spartan. That is a nice surprise overall. Another feature of the convenience package is keyless open. It is this little button right here. The car is already unlocked, but to unlock it, you hit this button here, and to lock it, you also hit that button. There is another look at the black interior with the blue stitching and the pretty typical controls on the door. However, we have the power lift gate, and it does have options. You can turn it off or have it only open 3/4 of the way. Another feature of the convenience package is 10-way power adjustable seats, including seat height, seat back, and lumbar adjust. The steering wheel itself is actually a flat bottom wheel right here, but the rim is actually a bit on the thin side. I wish it were a little bit thicker. That said, I do like the contours in it, and I do like the size of the wheel. And you do also have pretty typical media controls on the right, cruise control options on the left. I'll go over that in a bit more detail later. The convenience package also provides us with a heated steering wheel and heated front seats as well. I did start the car remotely, so to officially light everything up, standard equipment is an 8-inch digital instrument cluster and an 11-inch center display. Part of the center display includes standard Android Auto and standard Apple CarPlay, and it is wireless. Beneath that, you get a single zone climate control system right there. And because I have the convenience package too, I get a wireless smartphone charger right there, just beneath another set of USB Type-C and USB Type-A charge ports. And convenience package 2 also comes with rain sensing windshield wipers. Below that, we have a pretty typical Prindle right there and 2 nice and deep cup holders. And here is our button for the electric park brake next to a small tray right there and some more storage behind that. And it does go pretty darn deep. Looking up, we have a couple of controls for lights, and because we have the Experience Buick package, in addition to the 19-inch wheels, we also get a moonroof right here that will tilt and slide out, and it is a manual privacy panel right here. The Buick Envista does get an acoustic front windshield to help block out some noise, make it a little bit quieter on the open road, which is an indication of a bit of luxury in here. All right, let's talk drive modes, and it won't take long because we don't have any. We do have a way to adjust the car. We do have the ability to turn off traction control, to turn off traction and stability control, or to leave it all on. And whether those systems are on or off will change the dynamic behavior of the car a little bit. But there's not a sport mode or anything like that that I can see at the very least. And in a way, I have to say that's kind of refreshing. This is not a hot hatch. This is not a sports machine of any kind. So why add drive modes when you just make the car drive well generally? And I have to say, generally speaking, I think this is a nice and clean and modern looking interior. But if we don't have drive modes, how does it drive? Let's get back on the road and find out. All right, let's dig into the powertrain. Where does 137 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque come from? Well, it's a turbocharged 1.2 liter inline 3-cylinder engine. It's a buzzy little thing, I'll be honest. But I have to say, it is also reasonably capable. It is also an under-square engine, so smaller bore and longer stroke, which does aid in developing a little bit more torque. The turbocharger also helps that as well, of course, but that doesn't make it that much of a rever. It does come with dual overhead cams, and you get direct fuel injection. It's also attached to a 6-speed, which is pretty low for these days, automatic transmission, and it's not the fastest shifting automatic either, it must be said. And that power goes to the front wheels. This is front wheel drive only. Even the top of the line Avenir, front wheel drive. I'm surprised to see that from something that Buick labels an SUV. But this is also a small and light vehicle, so power is actually pretty reasonable. If I floor the accelerator, it's actually a pretty quick kick down and pretty decent acceleration. Here, all right, I'll slow down and I'll show you again. So from a nice and slow speed, floor the accelerator. It was a little bit slow to kick down that time, but then, you know, it's honestly pretty decent pull considering everything. It's not the type of thing that's gonna blow you away, but you're also not gonna be wanting for power either. It is enough power for all the different circumstances that you would need. And while I don't have drive modes, for example, a sport mode to turn on to maybe speed up the shifts or things like that, I do have a way to affect the way this powertrain feels. I can shift this from D to L, and by doing that, I'm turning on manual shift. There is a button on the Prindle to function like a Manumatic. You have a negative button on the bottom side, a positive button on the top side, so downshift and upshift. Gets me into a nice low gear, then I floor the accelerator. And it's interesting, there is still a little bit of a delay before you get the acceleration, but then, you know, it pulls pretty decent, and it holds the gear. It won't automatically upshift for you. You are in full control with this Manumatic. I appreciate that, but I'll go ahead and put it back in drive for now. Another advantage of having a small displacement engine, as you might imagine, is pretty darn good fuel economy. You get 28 miles to the gallon in the city, 32 miles to the gallon on the highway, 30 combined. Now, that's actually a little bit underwhelming considering how small this engine is and the fact that it's only front wheel drive. I honestly expected to get something more in the mid to upper 30s, but I think you can attribute that to the 6-speed, not higher gears from this transmission. If we had an 8-speed or a 10-speed, certainly, I think those are the type of numbers we'd get. Also, this is a lower cost vehicle, under 30 grand as tested, so this is not the highest levels of technology we're working with either. But, okay, as important as fuel economy is, it's still not nearly as much fun as accelerating. Of course I had to test that. 3 cylinders of fun. Turbocharger, of course. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test. We do have 6 speeds and 137 horsepower, but it's also not that heavy. So let's see how it goes. Okay, coming to a complete stop. Bit of brake torque. Off the brake. Not bad. A little something from this front wheel drive thing, and yeah, the shifts are okay. A little bit slow, but that's not bad. 3-cylinder buzzing along, but the acceleration really isn't that bad. It's solid acceleration. Respectable given what we're working with here. 137 horsepower, 162 pound-feet of torque, 3 cylinders, but help from a turbocharger means completely reasonable acceleration from this 2024 Buick Envista Sport Touring. All right, let's dig into the chassis. And again, this shows the low-cost nature of this Buick because it is a perfectly reasonable structure that it's built on, unique construction of course, but it is not a four-wheel independent suspension. You do have struts up front, that's very common these days, but you have a twist beam axle in the rear. That is a very space-efficient suspension to have in the back, allows for more cargo space and things like that, but it is a solid rear axle and means that when you go over bumps and lumps in the road, it tends to get a little lumpy and a little bouncy, and even a touch jarring at times. Now, because we have that experienced Buick package, we do have the Watts link, and that does add a lot more structure to the rear, and it does make it feel generally more stable, but it's still not refined, certainly not luxurious like Buicks of old. To be honest, I'm quite happy with the new styling direction Buick has taken. I think this is a good looking car. I think it's sharp. I think it's modern. It even looks a bit premium to me, but it doesn't feel premium. When you're going down the road, a 3-cylinder engine buzzing and an unrefined rear kind of makes the car jostle around a little bit. It looks premium, but it doesn't feel premium. It doesn't feel bad. It just doesn't feel up level in any way, shape, or form. There is another positive. It is a relatively light vehicle, 3,060 pounds. That does make it easy to maneuver. It feels tossable and easy to control. That's a plus. And Buick did a good job of tuning it. In terms of the ride comfort spectrum, it definitely leans on the ride side, but 9 times out of 10, it feels comfortable. And considering the price of this vehicle, it's really pretty good. And that's true on roads like this and on the interstate. I did test it there as well. Let me show you that. All right, everybody, time for a quick stint on the interstate. But first, I wanted to show you a couple of options with the cruise control. Because we have the advanced safety package for $595, we have, among other things, adaptive cruise control. But we don't have to have adaptive cruise control. So cruise control on off is right here. This is what cancels it, and then you set and reset it right here and adjust speed. If you have adaptive cruise control, you adjust the gap with this button right here. But if you'd rather have regular cruise control, you can use the cancel button to set that. So if I hold this button down, I have regular cruise control ready to go. And if I hold it again, I have adaptive cruise control ready to go. Also, for lane centering, lane departure warning, that kind of stuff, that is a separate button that you turn on down here in front of the Prindle. I will have the adaptive cruise control and the lane centering on to see how all that stuff works. Let's go see how it works. All right. Time to see how this Buick Envista feels on the open road and check out those driving aids. We do have a standard list of driving aids. I will go ahead and put those up on the screen right now for you to check out. But as I mentioned, we also have that safety package, and that includes a couple more driving aids, including the adaptive cruise control, which I will have on. So let's see how all of that works. Okay, cruise control is set at 78 miles an hour to go with traffic, and we are in the middle of a curve, so I am going to see how this lane keep works. I'm not even really taking my hand off the wheel. This is not a lane centering technology. This is a lane keep technology. It's more like bumper bowling. You're not going to be right dead center, but you're not going to drift off into another lane. So it's a little bit more of a rudimentary driving aid compared to some of the other modern stuff out there, but for what it is, it works fine. Oh, and there is one neat trick that this system has. In addition to showing you the lane centering and all that, it actually shows you how far away in terms of time you are from the car in front of you. We're currently 9/10 of a second away. That's a clever trick. More generally speaking though, I have to say I am pleasantly surprised with the quietness of the cabin. There's more cabin isolation than I expected in such a low-cost car. We do have a fair amount of road noise coming through. The body doesn't have tons of NVH material to soak those noises up, but wind is actually pretty well isolated and the tires are reasonably quiet, so it's actually pretty reasonable of a place to be in when you're on the open road. I do credit this acoustic windshield for helping out a little bit there. Also, because we have the power seats with the lumbar adjustment, the seats are comfortable. I would prefer a little bit more support, but considering everything, it's not bad. And I do also find this digital instrument cluster easy to read and use, and this 11-inch touchscreen to be pretty well set up. So overall, this is actually a pretty solid road trip car. All right, what do I think of this all new, very different 2024 Buick Envista? I have to say, there's a lot about it that I like. I like the way it looks. Genuinely, I think it's a sharp looking modern thing. And that's true of the exterior and the interior. I think they executed well there, and I quite like the way the screens are laid out and the way the interior is laid out generally. The switchgear is easy to reach. I think they did a lot of good things to make it comfortable without being overdone. So there's a lot of strengths here. To that end, for the price that you're paying for this, less than 30 grand, you do have a lot of good features. Heated steering wheel, heated seats, a nice and big center display with wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. You have a lot of charging options. You have the moonroof. Yeah, there's a lot of good features. But the core structure itself, the refinement feeling, the sound that the powertrain makes, the feel that you get going down the road, that is not as refined as other modern things. It's certainly not what you would consider premium vehicle levels, and even when you're looking at the mainstream, you can only really call it competitive. But then we get back to the price. The price is very compelling. The fact that you can get a well-equipped machine for under 30 grand, and it's actually quite spacious inside, considering that it's small on the outside, that does a lot of good for the brand. And yes, this does get a long ways away from traditional Buick, but considering everything, maybe that's not a bad thing. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you very much for watching.